So he wants, this individual, he or she, I can't remember, but it's anonymous. I wanted to know your scattered thoughts on practicing yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. That is all the rage. That is all the rage these days. Do you think it's okay to say and go to these classes? I'm surprised how many Muslims think it's fine, but I'm not so sure. Yet I do find many benefits from yoga as well. I know our prayer is similar to some yoga poses. To add to this, it seems as though Muslims are made to believe in this Western culture that we cannot find peace in Islam itself, but need quote-unquote extra or other less quote-unquote scary ways of finding peace without consequence. That we can pray, but to find real peace is through yoga and meditation on top of prayers. Is it possible to practice yoga a little, since it's good for your health physically and emotionally, and pray, or should we condemn it as shirk and abandon it totally? Well, what I would say is yoga is let's preempt it with the answer. Let's preempt my comments on this with the answer. The answer that you are looking for is that, generally speaking, you will find scholars that will condemn it as an act of polytheism, participating in polytheism, and that you should not participate in that, and therefore just don't do it because it's so linked to Hinduism and Buddhism and whatever. So it's impermissible for you to do it. The other way of looking at it is, as long as you do the physical poses, but you do not engage in the mantras. So as long as you just practice the physical element of it, the physical exercise part of it, but don't do the meditative or the mantras, then you're fine, because you'll be benefiting from the physical act, and you're no longer going to be engaging in the mantras and whatnot. I don't know about this. What I'm going to say is not to say do it or don't do it. I just want you to reflect on this and just think about it for a little bit. The thing about yoga, the term itself, the word yoga, from the Sanskrit root word yogi, I think is how you pronounce it, to yoke, is generally translated as this union between the individual atma, or this, the soul, with the Paramatma, or the Paramatma, which is this universal soul. It's, in other words, it's they're talking about hulul for the Arabs out there. They're talking about this union between God and human, this melting in together of the two. And so it's the union of the divine and the body, the mind and the spirit all coming together. So in essence, when you're doing yoga, you're really trying to do this unification process. That's from what I understand, that's how it's understood from a Hindu perspective. And the postures themselves, the poses that you engage in yoga, they're not simply just physical poses. These poses are poses that are constructed in a way to basically give an offering to one of the 300 some odd million Hindu gods. Each pose that you do in yoga is meant to represent something where you're bringing an offering to a small letter G god. So if you're doing these things, including the breathing, the way that you breathe, the way that they tell you to breathe, the way that you pose, the way that you meditate, all of that, when you combine it together, then it's becoming accepted by one of these 300 some odd million gods. So I don't know, that it's, when you look at it, let's flip the script a little bit and think about it from another perspective. Imagine, just for a second, that there are, because right now you have yoga, what are they called? Yoga centers, let's say, or yoga gyms or whatever. Imagine for a second that there are a bunch of salah centers. Salah gyms, and then you have a bunch of Westerners, a bunch of non-Muslims. When you pass by and you look through the window, all you see them do are engaging in bowing, ruku', sujood, in prostration, the sitting of the tashahhud, they're sitting there, and then for the mantras, they're saying in the ruku' Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, and then in the sujood they say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. Imagine this. And then they stand for a while, and then for the mantra they get told, all right, now say after me. In the sense of like the hippie type of new age. Say after me, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And then you have them actually recite the Fatiha. And meanwhile, they're non-Muslim, but they're just going to do all of these things. And then at the end of the thing, and then they say, okay, now say after me, Assalamu alaikum. And then they say Assalamu alaikum. And then they get up and they roll their mats, or they fold their mats, let's say, because, salah mats are not rollable. So they fold their mats, and then they tie them up and put them on their backpack, and then they get on the bus and walk. It's just, if you think, and then for their gear, the yoga gear, so you have the yoga gear, which is the yoga pants and all of that stuff. Instead of yoga, you have salah stuff. So you'll have the women wearing the hijab and engaging in the poses and stuff, and the men will also have their proper attire to make sure that they cover the necessary parts, right? And then afterwards, maybe they have masbahas and they sit there and they do the tasbih. And non-Muslim, they're non-Muslim. None of them is saying the shahada as a Muslim. They're just engaging in this practice for the purpose of just, self-actualization and physical exercise. The bowing helps my back. The prostration helps with my flexibility. If you think about it like that, it sounds really silly. And then it's like, oh, what are you doing tonight? Oh, I gotta go to my salah. I gotta go do my salah session. It's going to take, and I got to, and then when Ramadan comes and they all go do Taraweeh and stuff like that, and they just engage in all this, but they're non-Muslim. And the purpose of all of this is to just find, the stillness that they're looking for, and to find this physical stretching and exercise and all of that stuff. When you think about it like that, like, this sounds really silly, and nobody would ever do that. But that's actually what everybody's doing with yoga. If yoga itself is a derivative of a practice that is from an Eastern religion, they have their different takes on it, they have their different forms of it, they have their different yogi masters or whatever. And then even the yogi masters, I think that if I remember correctly, I came across there's like 4 different types of yoga. In essence, they're all kind of serving the same function, and they can all be similar in some way, but there's something different about each of them. I'm not totally familiar with it, but and so when I read that, I was like, that sounds like, all right, so you have a Hanafi yoga, you have a Maliki yoga, you have a Shafi'i yoga, you have an Hanbali yoga, and then you engage in all of these different, so basically you have salah centers where it's like, all right, I'm going to go to the Malikis, I'm going to go to the Shafi'is, and then people just like, oh yeah, the Shafi'i one is really good, I feel really nice with this one, and the other one's like, the Maliki one is better because I dislocated my shoulder and I can just put my hands on my sides and I don't have to worry about it. So it's just, when you think about it, it just seems really silly, but that's actually what people are doing with yoga. So, and it's not like yoga is the only exercise out there. It's all right. So you left out all the spiritual mantras. You left out all the meditative part of it. You're not engaged in any of that. But then you say, all right, I'm just going to do the exercise. All right. So what is left from the practice? Just a bunch of stretching and poses where you hold the stretch for a little while and stuff. All right. You can stretch. Like, you don't have to do it as yoga. You can just stretch and do your own exercise. So what makes it yoga is this package. And when you look at what the package entails religious practices from an Eastern religion. And then you're going to say that I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to engage in all. So it's almost like you're a Muslim Hindu, but you're not really a Hindu. You're a Muslim, but you're going to do all of the practices the Hindu does. I don't know. It's just something to think about. Like I said, this is not me telling you halal, haram, or any of that. I want you to, for Muslims out there, we all need to think a little bit more about these practices and get beyond the simple legal distinctions of, I just want to know if it's halal or haram so that I can just do it. You got to think a little bit about the practice and the behavior that you're engaging in. And when you think about this particular practice and behavior, it just seems really silly. It's the same thing with Christmas, because I'm recording this January 29th, Brisbane time. Just Christmas last month. I when I was visited Vancouver, I'm talking to my sister, and there are a lot of Muslims now are starting to just celebrate Christmas full on. Like, they're just bringing the trees and they're getting the gifts and the presents and doing all of these things. I'm just thinking, like, when have you ever seen non-Muslims come Eid al-Fitr time, or no, let's say Eid al-Adha, because there's even more to it. Eid al-Adha time comes, and then they all go to the farmers and they all buy lamb and sheep, and then they all slaughter and they all engage in all of the but they don't do the Eid prayer. Yeah, because they're not Muslim. They're not going to go to the Eid prayer. But lo and behold, they're going to go to the farm. They're going to buy sheep. They're going to buy cows. They're going to buy whatever. They're going to do the slaughter. They're gonna buy, distribute the meat in accordance to the sunnah. They're gonna have a gathering. They're gonna have people come together. They're gonna have all the sweets and all the you never see that, but Muslims go ahead and do all of this stuff. And it's just like, is culture really that important to you? Like or are you that weak that the dominant culture that you happen to live in a Western society, basically impacts you to such a degree that you can't even have a backbone to say, this is not something that I do. I'm a Muslim. And I think this is really a byproduct of, gotta do another episode on this, but just a byproduct of us having turned our religion into a ritual religion that is privatized, and it has no impact on your public behavior and on your social behavior anymore. So you just kind of engage in the ritual aspect of it, but it really has nothing else to do with the rest of your life. And byproducts of colonialism, byproducts of just inferiority complexes and whatnot. So anyways, I'll just leave it at that. I hope this just kind of triggers a little bit of thought for you guys.